from practical hints, I would also like to acquaint you to the history of today's shadow theater, because I think it's important to know the origin and which changes it made. The beginning of the intentional play with shadows is lost in the darkness of time. The legend, though, knows that it was at the palace of a Chinese emperor about 2,000 years ago. His wife had died, and to alleviate his grief, his minister made a cutout of his wife's profile, lit a candle, and then showed her profile as a shadow. May it have helped. Via the Orient, Turkey and Greece, it finally reached in Europe. In 1770, for almost 100 years, there was a shadow play called Séraphin Théâtre at the court of King Louis XVI. It was, so to say, the television for the French king. Though his program didn't last very long, the revolution ended it. A flame nourished by wax or oil and wavering around the wick was used as a source of light. Its flickering made the shadows twist and dance, and the small size produced only vague contours. In order to create a steady and distinct shadow, therefore, the player had to move the puppet along the canvas. Two important facts regarding the shadows still remain to be discovered, and his true beauty remained hidden. The first of those two discoveries occurred exactly on the 21st of October 1878. That was the day when the shadows lost their restlessness, and the man who tamed them was Thomas Edison. After more than 1,000 experiments, he guided the electric current through a filament of carbonized cotton, and that's how it looked like. Finally, the first steadily radiating source of artificial light brightened the shed behind his house, and the bulb was invented. From now on, light was no longer produced by an open flame, waving and flickering, but by a steadily glowing filament that was heated up with electricity. Within a few years, Edison's invention conquered the world, and all the wavering dark shapes in the houses, at the walls, in the street became quiet. The shadow was tamed. Nowhere else in nature had such steady shadows ever existed. No shadow had ever been motionless, not even the shadow of the sun. For shadow theater, however, this still required the traditional play of the screen. Even though the shadow had become steady, its outline became blurred whenever the shape was removed from the canvas. Edison's glowing filament was still too large to create a distinct shadow. And the next invention that revolutionized the shadow play was about 70 years ahead in the future. It was prepared, however, in the laboratories of General Electric in the 1950s. When trying to develop a small light with high luminous intensity for passenger aircrafts, the researchers first tried to work with stronger current. When that failed, they tried changing the air mixture in the bulb and met up with success. By adding halogen, it became possible to heat up the filament much more and to make it glow brighter, and thus the filament could be shortened and the radiating surface could be concentrated into one point. And that was it. Illuminated by such a small point of light, finally the shadows showed up very clearly and with distinct outlines. Now the shadow player could move around with his figure or his body. He was no longer forced to the screen. And finally, he even approached the light and took hold of it. And that changed everything. And independently from each other, there were three men in Europe who realize that this kind of light opens undreamed possibilities for us. And I will tell you about these three main in my next little tutorial called The Very First Ones. See you there.